Welcome back to Boston. As I enter the chat, George Balekji, Travis Thomas. Football is back for the Patriots tonight. The Mike Vrabel era for the Patriots kicks off as well.
Yep.
Patriots hosting the Commanders. You see that from the team page. We play football soon. Eyes welting up. Tears coming down.
Jabril. Tears
of joy. I'm excited to see Jabril Peppers.
Where's he from?
Play for Mike Vrabel. From Jersey.
Oh.
Greatest state that ever was or ever will be.
Oh.
Next to Maryland. Next to Connecticut. Next to Massachusetts. And that's where our guy Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald is from. Is from Connecticut. Now resides in Mass.
Yep.
AC, good morning, my man. Thanks for waking up with us. And thanks for the collared shirt at 8:30 in the morning. You are a professional, my friend.
You got it, my man. We are fresh from the gym, and where I see your biceps taking up half the screen. So I got to get in there early, and then we take a shower, and then we look nice. And then we wait for football tonight.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. So before we get to the game tonight, Andrew, I want to start with what we saw from the joint practice between the Commanders and the Patriots on Wednesday. It wasn't just the Patriots competing with the Commanders, but beating them in certain aspects. And that is a 180 from what we saw last summer when the Eagles came to town. And the Patriots just didn't seem like a team that can hold a candle to them. What has jumped out to you the most when you look back at Wednesday for the Pats competing, but also the improvement we've seen from this time last year to now in the middle of training camp in August?
Well, I think the biggest gap from last year was just the talent, right? Like the Eagles kicked them in the butt up and down the field. There was a gap in talent. There was a gap in coaching. And then, of course, the Eagles go to the NFC Championship game where they meet the Commanders. And granted, we know the Eagles are much more talented. But the other team in that NFC title game comes in Wednesday, and they were not the better team. So we know there have been big upgrades for the Patriots across the board. But it's one thing to see it on the field. And the thing for me that speaks loudest is were it not for drops, Drake Maye would have been 18 of 21, according to my guy Doug Kyed at the Herald, who charted every single snap. If that was the case, we'd be talking about him as potentially a top 10 quarterback this year. Alas, they had the drops, but overall the offense looked good. It was efficient and found a rhythm.
Yeah, Andrew, I was there, and it was the drops because he was absolutely perfect from everything I saw. He was the best quarterback on the field. I want to ask you another thing that I saw. You know, everyone's talking about the blood of Mike Vrabel emerging from the pile with the bloody cheek and all that. But I'm going to tell you what I saw. There were a bunch of fights all day, and he was in all of them. He was mixing it up in all of them. That was just the one that went viral and went crazy because he emerged bloody. Talk to me about Mike Vrabel and what he brings to this team. Many people feel as though he should have been the coach last season.
Yeah, well, look, I got to tell you that there were some on the opposite field that were happening that I saw when I was watching the defense, and Mike was not there. So unless the man teleported and got back faster than any human being has ever, there were a couple fights without him. But look, I think that's a moment that reminds us both that Mike Vrabel can be one of the best coaches in the NFL. And there's still a little piece in there that's a bit of a meathead genius. And so it was very reactive. And there's a real risk in that he came up and his forearm was starting to dangle like this. And had that happened, we'd have a very different story of a guy who was preaching, play safe, practice the way that you want to play, and then diving into a pile without pads on. But because he emerged safely, thankfully, we talk about a guy who is living up to the image that he's trying to instill in this football team. Your teammate goes down, one of your brothers, as they would put it, or someone that obviously he's trying to coach and develop, and he gets right in there without having to think about it. That's what they're trying to do here. The physicality, the togetherness, the culture. And look, this was a little bit high risk, low reward, but you got to know that the players love that.
Yeah, and that's what I want to know, too. Obviously, you covering the team every day. And beyond what we hear from the players at the podium, because the questions are constantly, Mike Vrabel, what is it like? What are you picking up from him? What's the difference? But what have you picked up, whether it's jumped out to you from players speaking at the podium or one-on-one talking to them on the side, what they get from Mike Vrabel as a head coach? Because we see the guy jumping in piles and fighting. We see the guy putting the pads on and, having Will Campbell put him on his ass. Yep. But what do they get from a head coach that has that type of vindication every day with them, where he doesn't just want to win games, but he loves being in the trenches with them?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of confidence and calm, which is not to say that there isn't high energy and some stress out there, because the end of these practices, they're not running the hill anymore because this is a different program, but there is an intensity start to finish. And so what the calm is just an understanding, okay, this guy's going to get me better. And in the process, he's going to have my back. So as much as Gerard Mayo wanted to strike the balance between, coach and friend and then manager, it didn't go well, as we all know. Mike Vrabel's done this before. He knows his weaknesses. He knows his strengths. He knows the part of the program that are non-negotiable and where he'll meet players on the other side. And in doing so, have a few laughs. So there's a lot of intensity here and urgency, but that sense of this guy's not only smart, but cares about us and is going to work his ass off and live up to every single word that he tells us. that's kind of what you want in a coach, and that's what they're getting.
AC, I'm a betting man, so I just want to get with you and take some bets here on what we think the Brady statue will look like. Now, I said two things. AC. I said, number one, whoever did the sketch in the courtroom when Tom was in there for Deflategate, do you remember that?
Oh, how could we forget? Burned into my brain.
Keep that person away from the statue. The second one is Dwayne Wade got a statue in Miami that is atrocious. It should be ripped down immediately, okay? I think Brady, as long as he can avoid those two things, he should be okay. Taking bets here. Do you think the Brady statue will look good tonight?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, he's maybe the most handsome man in America. So if you're screwing up the statue, something's really wrong. And I'll say this, because the Dwayne Wade statue came to mind for me. I think whoever made that statue walked so every other statue maker could run. Because if you're a famous person, right, and you're an owner and you're going, hey, the one thing I need from you is not this, okay? I think that's happening every time there's a statue from here on out. So I think it'll be just fine.
Yeah, I would hope they're not either, contracting the guy that built Cristiano Ronaldo's statue.
Oh, that's another
out
one.
in Portugal as well.
Oh.
Hey, before we talk about the next QB, it looks like will be the franchise quarterback in Drake Maye. Andrew, you've been covering the team for a long time. Brady will get his statue revealed tonight, and of course, he should get it. He's the greatest football player of all time, not just greatest Patriot. From your time covering Tom Brady, being a beat reporter for this team, and covering him during the height of this franchise, what's a story, what's a moment you can share, something that sticks out to you? There's the wins, there's the losses. We see the highlights on the field. But from Tom Brady being with the Patriots, what is a moment or a story that resonates with you from his time as a Patriot?
Yeah, I'll give you two things. One on the field, and this is one of the best wins when you listen to guys like Devin McCourty and David Andrews. That AFC Championship game in Kansas City right before they win their last Super Bowl. And that last Super Bowl was all about defense, right? So Brady gets his ring. Remember the throw to Gronk, but they scored 13 points. That's a game that he did not win. The defense did. The game before, the man is going up and down the field in 2 minutes. Third down completions to Edelman, Gronk. Like, the doubts about the team were exaggerated at that point, the stuff they tell themselves. But to see that man at that age with that amount of pressure and a moment where the Chiefs are reaching for the baton, we got next. We're the dynasty to come. You guys go home. And he says, no, repeatedly in the fourth quarter and overtime was spectacular. The other one I'm going to steal from a guy who used to cover the team. Now he's in New Orleans, Nick Underhill, who the season after did the story for The Athletic about swamp ass. And he just straight up walks to Tom Brady about how you handle that in Miami. And he talks to all of his centers. And this is a time when Brady was drifting from the team. This is a guy that talked about he was the most miserable 8-0 quarterback ever. But he took a minute and was like, okay, that's a good story. And no one really bothered him in the locker room. And he shared it and he opened up. And so that personality was there, even though sometimes we all know he can come off a little robotic. There was some joy there, and it was great to see that side of him at the very end.
All right, let's go back to the new quarterback now, Drake Maye. I mean, the draft class, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, obviously Jaden Daniels. Where's Drake right now? Obviously, we know who's at the top. It's Jaden Daniels. He was a bad quarter or two away from the Super Bowl. We get it. Is Drake right now, you think, right behind him? Do you have Nix with what he's doing with Sean Payton out there in Denver? Or maybe you like Penix in Atlanta? Where's sort of Drake Maye right now, today, present in that pecking order, would you say, in that draft class?
Yeah, I'd say second. I'd say second pretty confidently, because I think when you ask the question of who's driving the winning, who's creating the winning plays, Bo Nix threw a higher percentage of passes behind the line of scrimmage, I think, than any other quarterback in football. And those are plays where you just kind of dump it off, and the receivers got to go get yards. So, Drake is dealing with the worst pass protecting line in football last year. He's dealing with a bottom 10, maybe 5 skill group. And now that's been improved. But you look at the plays, extended or otherwise, and the scrambles. Imagine where they would be had Jacoby Brissett just gone on playing. And imagine where the Broncos might have been had Drake Maye been doing those things for them. So, of course, he's not as good as Jaden Daniels, but I feel very confident, all due respect to Penix, who I like, that he's definitively second in that draft class and probably around 17th, maybe 16th dead average in the entire league with the potential to be top 10 this year.
Okay, AC, you hold on. We can't gloss over this. You said Jaden Daniels is definitely better than him. Is this based off the results you saw last year and how deep that team went? Or quite literally, you're saying, no, he's just a better quarterback than Drake Maye, period, from what you've seen? Because I would argue, and I did this with the DC peeps, of, look, Drake Maye didn't have half of what Jaden Daniels had. He didn't even have a really good coaching staff around him until now, of course. He had no weapons. His offensive line is the worst I've ever seen with thine eyes. Are you predicating this off of results, or you just think Jaden Daniels is a better player, period?
Well, I think he's a better player, period, right now in this moment in time, August 8th, because of what I've seen on the football field and the things you can even hold independent of his surroundings, which, granted, yeah, of course, everyone had a better situation than Drake Maye, right? When you're the worst, you're the worst. But when you look at Washington, like the group we watched yesterday without Terry McLaurin is also bottom of the league everywhere else. And what this guy is not only just older, his college career was twice as long. And so that experience has him in a place that Drake Maye is still getting to. Not to mention, the man was 7th in MVP voting. Like, there were only 6 people who had better seasons in all of football than Jaden Daniels, a historically great season. I think there are many worlds in which Drake Maye gets better over his career. But right now, August 8th, Jaden Daniels is the better quarterback.
Now, part of what will get Drake Maye to rise up the ranks, right? You said, if he's 17th, 16th best in the league, slightly below average, but you would take that if you're Patriots fans, is Josh McDaniels. Beyond knowing, we know what the McDaniels system is here. A lot of people are familiar with it in New England, of course. What will be the most important aspect between the partnership between Drake Maye and Josh McDaniels for Maye to make the leap, not just this season, but long-term in his career?
So I think there's got to be a two-way street here, right? And we've seen this with Josh in a way that I think has largely been underrated. Like, you remember that Cam Newton offense, save for the balls that were going into the turf. Like, they ran more stuff that season that we had never seen before, of course, in the Brady offense. And they go back to the Brady offense with Mac Jones. And so I think there's got to be an understanding. It's not just that Drake's mobile, which they are taking advantage of in camp. Bootleg throws, some more RPOs, tons of different stuff down the field that you didn't do with a guy like Mac last time Josh McDaniels was here. But there's also got to be an understanding and a two-way street of, okay, I'm going to take more risks than you're accustomed to, where you've had all these guys who were just really reticent to throw the ball away, which is obviously what you don't want to do. Mac Jones, Derek Carr, Tom Brady, even Matt Castle get on the list. But when I risk that ball, I'm going to make plays that Josh Allen makes. I'm going to make plays that Patrick Mahomes makes that you can't unless you're willing to take a little bit of risk with that reward. And I think that's going to be the most fascinating part of their relationship, where they've really driven into him, hey, throw the ball away, take your first read. This is a bucking bronco that they need to learn how to ride and tame just a little bit. But I don't want Josh McDaniels making Drake Maye to Mac Jones, and I don't think he will. It'll just take time to figure that part out.
A bucking bronco. I love hearing that because my ears perk when you bring up the RPOs, you bring up the bootlegs. I just cannot get out of my head watching national championship game, watching what Will Howard did. Drake Maye is leaps and bounds more talented. But seeing sprint outs, RPOs, read options, bootlegs, like you said, and Chip Kelly running that offense and go, I mean, this would be perfect for Josh McDaniels to implement. What do you think will be that extra wrinkle, that adaptation? It's not just Drake Maye growing, but Josh McDaniels growing as a play caller to bring out that ceiling and tap into the potential of Drake Maye.
Yeah, we'll see, guys, right? Because even in the latter Brady years, they're figuring out their identity and how it shifts from the start of a season when you're going 3 wide with Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon that year, all the guys that they had, and then they leave the team, and by the end of 2019, you're a power running team with Landon Roberts, a linebacker, playing fullback. So they're going to figure it out. What I'll just say is, again, there's more stuff in training camp that we've not seen from a Josh McDaniels offense, some of the stuff I listed, ever before. And that's good. And I think that's the influence of coaches he's never worked with. But they're going to have to figure some things out. The good news is, unlike Alex Van Pelt, who came from a Browns offense that was very much down the field, play action, even though they didn't run a ton of it, Josh McDaniels can build quick game to offset the pressure that's going to come through what is probably a bad offensive line and pass protection. So he knows how to get ahead of that and accentuate Maye's skills with some of the new plays we just talked about.
Andrew, you just mentioned it. Talk about offsetting pressure on the face. What do you think of this offensive line? Because right now, as we see with the depth chart shaking out, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it'll be 2 rookies starting on the left side. Morgan Moses, who's on kind of like a pitch count getting ready for the season. Garrett Bradbury at center, Mike Onwenu at right guard. What do you make of where do you think this offensive line will be and how much they can help or possibly negatively impact Drake Maye and this offense?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll start maybe a little takey here. Will Campbell, I think, shoulders more of the ceiling and potential of this team than any non-quarterback on the roster. Like he will be the bellwether for this offense because there's no world in which that he is terrible and this Patriots team surprises. He needs to at least be adequate. Okay, and that's asking a lot of a rookie offensive tackle. I don't care if you're taking 4th or 30th. The history tells you these guys are not good as rookies. But next to him, Jared Wilson's been very good. And I think that's really just them speaking to, we need our 5 best linemen. And I don't care if these guys are in their early 20s. They're better than the other guys that we have. That's why you're playing. The question for me will be Morgan Moses, though, in addition to Will Campbell. Because, look, they can't fight a two-front war on both edges and try to figure that out. Morgan Moses is 34. The load management is there. It sounds like he is a little nicked up.
Yep.
But his backup is another rookie. So you might have 3 rookies starting for the Patriots on their offensive line, and Marcus Bryant, who is a 7th rounder. So the questions are real, and they're in a lot of spots.
So what? The offensive line can't be no damn worse. We've been at rock bottom for 2 years. I'll take all rookies. Yeah, I'll take all rookies. I want to ask you this. Let's stay hot takey. I mean, everyone in D.C. is telling me the Terry McLaurin deal is done. They're crossing T's and dotting I's. He's off the market. A, do you believe that? B, should the Patriots get involved? And then C, here's a hot take. Should they pick up the phone and call old man Jera, who doesn't even know what day of the week it is, and say, hey, give us Micah. How many first-round picks do you want? What do you think?
Yeah, I think they should always pick up the phone. And I'll tell you from people that I've spoken with in front offices, they always do. Sometimes it goes from 30 seconds, no, we're not going to do that, and then they catch up about their kids. So to go back to McLaurin, though, who between the two, and we're talking remote possibilities as far as I've heard, and people like Diana Rossini, who's close with Vrabel in this regime and has a really good pulse on everything in the league, says it's not going to happen. She's echoing the folks in D.C. you just referenced. Terry McLaurin's going to be a commander. Of course, you should make a call. That's a guy who's not only a great player to position a need, he's a culture driver.
Right.
He's everything that you don't have really in terms of experience, speed on the outside, because if not him, it's Kyle Williams. I wouldn't spend too much time thinking about this, but if you do, just get more to the Madden or fantasy football aspects of it, because that's the only place it's really going to happen.
Yeah, one of Travis's boys from D.C., what's his name, Trav?
Chick.
Last name?
Hernandez.
Yeah, Chick Hernandez. I mean, he slipped it to Trav the other day. He goes, an agreement's pretty much already underway. It's just not signed yet. So that was a little tea that Trav picked up from his connections in D.C. Okay, so no Terry McLaurin in New England. Let's move on then at that point. How do you see the depth chart shaking out? Because I'll tell you, the surprise name for me, it's not Pop in his ascension. It's really not Kayshon Boutte, but we're seeing a lot of Javon Baker catch steam in training camp. Who do you see being the top 3 receivers and overall the guys that make this roster active playing game days on Sunday?
So I'll tell you the way I see it now. Again, like I say, this could change. There are 5 roster locks for the receivers. You're talking Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Kyle Williams, and Matt Collins. That is a full receiving core unto itself. Okay, and that's from what we've seen in practice. This is what we know about those players over time and their production and their careers. So that 6th spot could be Baker. It could be Kendrick Bourne. It could be Jalen Polk, though I doubt it, with Jalen Polk, or more Efton Chisholm, because that's a guy that everyone has seen and hasn't produced in the way that earns a roster spot. But right now, what Baker does that the other 3 guys I just listed do not, is he has higher highs, right? The highlights there in practice are as good as any other receivers on the roster. The issue is the lows are a little bit lower, too. So I think they've got to look at that spot and go, do we want a reliable veteran who we can count on for 400 or 500 yards in Kendrick Bourne, especially if someone gets hurt, even though he's been slow? And he's caught 2 passes from Drake Maye all summer. Or would we rather use that 6th spot as a developmental roster spot and keep a Baker or a Chisholm, or probably not, but maybe a Polk, as a guy who long-term will pay off even if he's not playing a lot this season?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Who do you think is a guy that's on the outside looking in end of it? I love that you bring up the Kendrick Bourne on the bubble, but also the names you bring up, like a Jalen Polk.
Yeah, I don't see Polk on the roster. There's just nothing on the field that would tell me he deserves to make it. And I'll say this, too. He had a good camp last summer. People forget that. And this is not a case to be made that he should be on the roster. I just said I don't see it. But even for a guy who you excuse his rookie year, being in the worst circumstances any rookie could be, aside from Drake Maye, this season just doesn't feel that much different. So I don't think he's there. I think right now, Bourne would probably be out. He's also hurt.
Yeah.
And Cole Strange, to pivot to a different position, is another guy where you go, he's just not showing it. And I don't think this front office is going to be precious at all with players that have been here before, drafted or started. You got to prove it all over again.
Yep.
Yeah. Mike Vrabel said I don't care who drafted you, where you were drafted. He's giving everyone a fresh start. It doesn't sound like, and from your coverage, Andrew, well, you've been doing a great job down there, too.
How's Elliott Wolf still employed? That's another topic for another day. We'll have you back, brother. But this stuff doesn't make any sense to me. You draft these guys, and they're worthless. And that's a fireable offense. I'm sorry. That's a wasted draft pick, and you have several of them on this damn roster. Yet he's still here.
One word, last name Kraft. And I think that's what it is with Elliott Wolf. He's Andrew Callahan of the Boss. Unless, Andrew, you want to correct me on my answer.
It's true, though.
No, look, Mike Vrabel's in charge. That's the thing to remember. And I think if we fired every GM for one bad draft class that they had, we would have more turnover than we do with head coaches.
What?
And so, Yeah, Elliott Wolf, that was his one draft class. This one looks pretty good, by the way, that he contributed to.
It does.
So that's what it is. And it's just time. They see him as an asset. But look, this is Mike Vrabel's team. That goes for the front office, the coaching staff, and everything that happens on the field.
Let's not forget, Eagles GM, he also passed on Justin Jefferson for Jalen Reagor. And look at what they just did this last season.
We all missed.
He's Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald. He's talking about Mike Vrabel being in charge. Check out his latest article on John Stretch Stryker. Awesome piece he put out for the Herald. And always catch AC, him, Doug Hyde, Zach Cox every day covering the Pats. Andrew, loved having you on the show, my man. Appreciate the collared shirt. Have fun tonight. We'll see you next time on the chat, bro.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
All right, we'll send it to break here. When we're back, we'll get into what's trending, including Arch Manning and Texas. Be right back after this.